We've learned a lot so far about a met contact, an unmet contact, how they convert, maybe where we find them, and more importantly, what we do with them once we have that contact information. And now I want to explain to you a simple concept called the 12-week year. I remember back in 2017 as an agent, my goal was to put under contract 50 properties. Residential, raw land, homes on acreage, whatever it was, my goal was to put under contract 50 properties. I knew that if I could get 50 under contract, even if all of them didn't close, that it would put me ahead of where I finished in 2016. So I took off as my goal 50 properties, and I got about 2 weeks into January and received a marketing email. Now, why I chose to read this, I'll never know, but it changed everything for me. Now, it was saying or stating a 12-week year. And I thought, how can I go from 36 properties to 50 properties and do that in 12 weeks? Now, the reality is what they were touching on is breaking your year into 12-week stints or 90 days, or as I like to call it, per quarter. So you take that goal, your unit goal, which by now you probably have or have an idea of. I would like for you to have a unit goal or a transaction goal, a volume goal, meaning volume being the number of sales you made in a year in terms of the price per unit, all added together. And then I would also like you to have the income goal as well. So with that being said, back to the 12-week year concept, I remember reading that email and thinking, okay, if I break my business down by the quarter, and I'll use 48 for this example because 50 divided by 4 and that math without a calculator is difficult, but let's say that it was 48. I would then take 48 and divide it by the 4 quarters in the year. I would then take that number and divide it by the months in that quarter. And when that was done, that allowed me to understand what work needed to be done by the month. So I'm not sitting in January looking way out at December thinking, oh my gosh, I have one person in January under contract. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 4 for you, but the point is this, I'm looking at one person under contract. How am I going to get 49 other people on board? And of course, for this example, I would have meant 47. But at the end of the day, the thought was, how am I going to get that? How am I going to achieve that? I can't just magically work harder, at least without the right tools and resources at my disposal. I can't just work harder and magically get 15 more deals or 14 more deals. So utilizing that, knowing now what I needed to do by the month, I could then figure out what I needed to do by the week. It even allowed me to understand how to operate with my boots on the ground every single day as an agent. It allowed me to understand what I needed to do per week. There's nothing worse than working in a sea of ambiguity, not knowing exactly if what you're doing is going to pay off, or if what you're doing is accurate or correct, or the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. All of these things we'll be unpacking in the future courses, but what I do know is taking that year-end goal, dividing it by the 4 quarters, and then taking that number and dividing it by the months in the quarter, which is 3, will tell you what you're doing or what you need to be doing each and every month. You can then divide that by the 4 weeks in a month and figure out what you need to be doing per month, however small you would like to make that. But that was an incredibly huge, incredibly large, groundbreaking idea, groundbreaking concept for me as I tried to march my way to 50, because 50 is something I had never done before. So you can take this with any number. Maybe you want to do 12 units in a year. Maybe you're seasoned and you want your team to sell 100 properties in a year. Use that formula. I hope you've taken notes on that, but use that formula to figure out what you need to be doing. Clarity is power, and that exercise will give you clarity.